I want to welcome you guys to Conversations with Yolanda, and I'm so excited to be here today with you guys that'll be listening or even watching the video with this conversation about therapy, and especially in the African American community. And so I want to have my guest introduce herself and tell us a little bit about herself. And then we're going to dive into some questions about therapy and the need for therapy and what it looks like in the African American community and in all communities during this time. So welcome, welcome, welcome to Conversations with Yolanda. I'm going to have you just kind of open up and introduce yourself. I was going to say something about you, but I'm going to let you do that, and then we're going to dive right in.
Okay. All right. So hi, everyone. And Yolanda, thank you so much for this invitation to come and share some information with your followers. I count it a privilege and an honor to share information about mental health and wellness and just helping, share what that looks like. So my name is Alethia Faison. I am the CEO and founder of Truth Therapy Incorporated. It is a private practice that is located in Nashville, Tennessee. I actually launched my business in December of 2020. So it's very, very new. However, I think I've been operating in this gift for years. So I'm super excited. I'm a marriage and family therapist. I'm a wife, a mom, sister, daughter, friend, all of that.
Great. So when did you know, Alethia, that you were interested in counseling and therapy? What was that light bulb moment for you?
So honestly, I ran from this. God had spoke to me years ago and told me that he had called me to work with hurting people. And I said, no, I think you got the wrong person. And so I ran for probably about 6 years. And then I just had to surrender and submit to God. And I will tell you, it feels a lot better on this side of walking in the purpose and the call that God has given me. And, I bless God every time I have an opportunity to sit down with a client and help them work through whatever their healing process looks like. So that is, I didn't go into this, oh, this is what I want to do, but it was definitely God's call. But I love this. This is what I'm passionate about. I love to do this. I love working with people on their journey to healing.
That's so good. It's interesting when you said you always knew, and I bet if you can think back, you were already doing it before you were doing it with friends, families, people at the church, because when that gift is in operation, it's not about a degree and a license for you to operate in that gift. And so I know you have been doing that for years. Can you think of times that you were doing that even before you opened up your practice?
Sure. So I am a pastor's wife. My husband pastors here in Nashville.
I want you to share that. That's what I was trying to get there.
Yeah, so my husband is the Reverend Dr. John R. Faison, Sr. He is the pastor of the Watson Grove Missionary Baptist Church here in Nashville. And so we have been in Tennessee for about 8 years. We knew that God had called us here. As far as when I first started, I think working with people was probably in Virginia. The last 4 years that we were there, my husband was the youth pastor at the church that we attended, Good Shepherd. And as him being the youth pastor, a lot of times, people would come to the wife and, just want to talk and share. And, in those moments, I'm like, God, what am I supposed to do? Like, I know that you sent them here to me for a purpose, but I didn't know what to do. And so, of course, I would pray with them and just believe God for them and, just watch God do some amazing things. And that pattern continued. It was the same thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm teaching right now, God, but yet you're using me like this. And so you're right. I was doing a lot of that within the church, within the community, and didn't even realize it. One of my gifts is I'm an intercessor. And so,
Me too. I love
you
it.
pray and yeah. So and so I think I've always had this gift. I can even, remember in high school, people would always come to me to talk to me and get wisdom and advice. So I think it's always been a part of me, but I kind of denied it. Didn't want to do
Yes.
it.
A lot of times when people hear the word therapy, they always
Mm-hmm.
go to something is wrong with me if I need
Mm-hmm.
therapy. And especially in the African American community, we have this saying, what goes on in our house stays in our house. So don't be going and talking to anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still seeing that in the African American community that there's a lot of hesitancy for receiving counseling, or are you seeing a shift in that?
So I will say I see kind of both. I think within our church, we have an amazing pastor who has kind of taken away the stigma. I haven't talked a lot about it, but he's talked a lot about it and made it kind of normal, normal language. I did grow up in a house where what stayed in the house, what went on in the house, stayed in the house. I didn't know about therapy until probably I went to college. And so my mom taught me that all you need is Jesus. You go down to the altar on Sunday morning, you roll around in the floor, and you'll be good. But what I found was, yes, I need Jesus, definitely. I can put those things on the altar, but then how am I going to live in a healthy manner Monday through Saturday when I can't go to the church or go to the altar and roll around or whatever? And so I think therapy is super important in empowering people to have skills and tools and strategies to kind of get through life. And so now, I will say now, it's a more common conversation to talk about therapy. And with some of these athletes or some of these celebrities coming out and just sharing that, they have gone to therapy and how beneficial it's been for them. And, you don't have to be, I don't like the word crazy, but that term is always used. But you can come to therapy if you're just making life transitions and you just want an objective opinion about maybe, if you're going in the right direction. So therapy is not just for when there's something going on or going wrong in your life. Things can be going well, but you just, you're making some decisions and you just want an objective voice, because going to mama or friends, they're going to side with whatever you want to do and not necessarily give you an objective opinion. But I will also say that COVID-19 has made therapy much needed. I did a podcast, I think a couple of months ago, and the question was asked, do I need therapy? And my response was, every single person needs therapy because everybody has been exposed to this trauma that has gone on in 2020 and even before then. So yes, I think everybody needs to come in and sit on somebody's couch and process your feelings and your emotions in a safe, confidential space. Because, a lot of times mama and daddy said what stays in this house, we won't share that because folks be talking about you. And so discourage you from reaching out. But when you go to therapy, you're bound by confidentiality. So that therapist cannot share what's discussed in that room unless you're going to do harm to yourself. So it's a safe space. And I will say that with COVID-19, we did see some increase in numbers at the site that I did an internship at. So it was like an 85% increase. And so a lot of people were trying to figure out how to, maneuver through the day because it was just so many uncertainties. So yes, COVID has made therapy almost like a normal term now, so to speak.
Exactly. One of the things that you mentioned is that Pastor Faison has made it seem normal. He's normalized it. But in a lot of congregations, you don't see that. So can you share some of the things that he did or things that he may have put in place in his church that made it seem like, this is something all of us need? Because a lot of times in the churches where they're telling you, we're just going to pray, and then they're not really talking about therapy or have a culture that kind of incorporates that even within the ministry.
Yeah, sure thing. So when we came to Watson Grove, we came because the previous pastor had passed away. And so that church was in the middle of a grieving process. And my husband was very, very sensitive to that. And so he started out talking about healing and what it looked like. Of course, he used scripture, but he gave some practical examples of what it looks like to be healed, that you don't need to suppress those feelings. Yes, you can take your stuff to God. He says, cast your cares upon him because he cares for us. Yeah. But then, he talked about that there's some times where there's some thoughts or some things that maybe you just need to get a professional's opinion about, just to process through. And also he talked a lot about if you're having a thought that you can't get out of your mind, maybe you need to go and talk to someone. And most recently, we have been very transparent. We both see therapists because we understand the weight that we carry and the responsibility that we carry, that we need to make sure that we are emotionally well so that we can do what God has called us to do. So I think we have stood and been consistent examples of it, and that there's nothing wrong with it. And I think the congregation has seen a change in us for the better, because we're able to deal with our feelings and emotions as they come. Absolutely. Or crises as they come. And so that's what therapy does. It gives you those coping strategies and things to help you kind of maneuver through life.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, even being in a leadership position, whether it's at a church or in a corporation, a lot of times those people don't have anyone to talk to. We've seen it nationally, pastors even committing suicide and nobody even realized it, or they broke down and they was ready to leave because of the pressure, because they didn't have that community. Because a lot of times we say, that's my guy, yeah, he can call me anytime. He didn't feel like he could call you. So being able to really begin to even make it, more churches even offering it, where pastors even feel like, or leaders in corporations feel like, oh, I can go get some help. It's normal to need help, because we haven't seen that a lot. So I'm so glad to see not only you in your private practice, but that your church is building a culture to show that therapy is a good thing, that we all need it. Because I just see so many pastors and leaders struggling and feeling like they don't have anybody to talk to.
Right. Yes. And you know what? That has been a constant theme, especially those who are in leadership, feeling as if they don't have anyone that they can confide in. And one thing our spiritual leaders, Bishop and Elder Brown,
I love them.
Oh my God, I love them too, is you need to find someone that you feel safe with, that you can, I think the term was emotionally vomit and get that stuff out. Get that stuff out, and it's a safe environment. And it's great to have, friends that you can do that with. But, there's some limitation with friends. And then, once that limit is met, you need to seek out some guidance of a professional that can help you walk through whatever crisis or whatever situation that you're going through. So,
how did you come up with the name Truth Therapy?
Okay, so interesting. So my name is Alethia, and Alethia is Greek, and it means truth.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
And so, God has given me a lot of different gifts. And one thing that he has said always to me, when you open up your mouth, you speak my truth.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just a common theme. And I wanted to name the business after myself for obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But I kept hearing God say, no, truth.
And it's still your name.
Yeah, it is. It is. And the theme that we have, or the slogan, is truth makes change possible.
Mm.
So when you recognize your truth, acknowledge your truth, then the journey of change can happen so that you can be
Absolutely,
well.
absolutely, absolutely. So if someone's looking for a therapist, what are some things that you would recommend them to do on that journey of really seeking out the therapist for themselves?
So that is a great question. And I get this question a lot. So there is not a one size fit all therapist out there. And I do say sometimes you can do a search on psychology.com, or I'm connected to Clinicians of Color. And so that is a database of therapists who are of color
Mm-hmm.
across the United States.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
so you can put in the different specifications if you want a male, female, if you want a Christian counselor, not Christian counselor, whatever it is. You can search it out on those sites. I would say when you are choosing a therapist, go to whatever search engine you use to seek out a therapist. You can go back word of mouth. Or you can seek them out online. I would say read their bio and see what they specialize in. Most therapists will give you a 15-minute consultation for you to kind of call them and kind of share what it is that you're wanting to do, and to see if this therapist is a good fit for you. If it is, you move forward. I've also shared that when you have that initial appointment, if something doesn't feel right, you're not obligated to continue to see that therapist.
That's good. Yeah.
Because in order for you to do the work in the room for change, you have to feel like this is a safe, non-judgmental, confidential environment. And if you're not connecting and building a therapeutic alliance with your therapist, then that's going to be hard for you to do your work. I'm not going to say that therapy is easy, because it's hard work, because you're having to unlearn some toxic, dysfunctional behaviors or false narratives. It's hard work. But if you trust your therapist, then you're more inclined to lean into the process. Yeah. So I have shared before that I had to fire 2 of my therapists because we just did not connect. And I was upfront and honest. And we are. I tell my clients all the time, if I am not what it is that you need to do the work, it's not about me, it's about you being able to do the work. So if I'm not that person, then, I wish you well. And so being okay, and, we're trained that we don't take it personal if a client doesn't, return. It's not about us, it's about them, and them being able to do the work that they need to do in the room.
Exactly. I remember one friend had gone to a therapist, and she was bringing up different racial things that she was struggling with. And it was a white female. She just could not get past really being really honest about what she felt. And I said, you need to find a new therapist. You're struggling, and just to keep that person like feeling good and you're feeling horrible. And she eventually transitioned to a therapist of color, because she said she just felt more comfortable having those kind of conversations. And you have to do that kind of thing. And not, a lot of times you're in therapy, you, just like you said, you feel like you're there to please that person. You're there to do truth and healing for yourself. And she eventually did. So it's good that you can do a 15-minute with someone and kind of figure out, or do a couple of sessions and then transition out if it's not the right, but feeling okay with that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, it's totally about the client and them being able to do the work they need to do, because that's what's most important to us.
Exactly.
As therapists.
What are the services that you offer in your practice?
Okay, so I do offer services for individuals, couples, and families. So basically I will see anyone who's ready to walk that journey to change and healing.
Exactly. You said a key word, ready.
Right.
A lot of people say they're ready, but then they're really not ready. I have a consultant and a coaching business, and people come to me and they ready, but when I do the first assessment, I'm like, no, you're not ready. And it's okay. I need you to go and do these things here. Or if I give you work to do and you come back and you haven't done it, I'm like, I'm just taking your money. We need to transition now because you really are not ready to do the work. So that ready piece is so key to getting past your trauma and get to your healing.
Yeah, that is so correct.
Yeah. One of the things that I've seen with couples, when you said marriage counseling, is that they feel like it's just what you do prior to the wedding day. Mm-hmm. So can you give us some feedback on what your thoughts are on just married couples, not just doing the premarital counseling, but continue to do the work after the marriage has started?
Yes, sure. So I will say with my clients or my couples that I work with doing premarital counseling, one of my conditions in my contract is that 6 months after you are married, that you are required to come back for a session, because it's important that you do take the steps before you say I do.
Yes.
But then after you say I do, it's a different word. Mm-hmm. And you have to continue to work at your marriage. You have to do work to keep the connection, to keep the communication. And so we have this idea, maybe before we get married, how it's going to be. And then we get to that day and we get married. And then like 6 months down the road, we're like, what did I just do?
Right.
You know, and so I like to, revisit with them. But I think it's important that couples every now and again, maybe once a year, twice a year, do a check-in with a marriage counselor or a therapist, just to make sure that that there are no issues that are hindering, like the couple's needs, their needs are being met, that they're able to communicate their needs, their wants, and their desires. Mm-hmm. There is no tension or confusion, or, because that can happen and that can cause some distance in relationships. And so it's important, I think, that couples do a checkup. You know how you have your yearly checkup? Do a checkup, a marriage checkup, just to make sure that things are doing and going well. It doesn't mean that something is necessarily wrong, but I value my marriage enough that I want to make sure that everything is going okay or going right.
That's good. Just like we do a medical checkup. We do a medical checkup, at least an annual one once a year. So the same for marriage. And I was married and divorced. And I just think back on even the premarital counseling I had wasn't really premarital. I was like, what was I thinking? I'm too young to be doing it, period. But that was not a marriage counseling even that I received. So being able to really educate people on what that really looks like, and then the after work is so critical. How can people reach you? How can they get in touch with you?
Oh, okay. Well, if you are in the Tennessee area and you want to connect with me, you can go to my website, which is www.truththerapyinc.com. And there you can find out all about me, all about the services I offer. And also, if you want to invite me to maybe speak on a podcast or speak about mental health topics. So that's a great place. That's probably the best place to connect with me.
And I will include that in the podcast information as well. Do you take insurance?
So no, I do not take insurance right now. I am pre-licensed.
Okay.
So that means that I am still working towards fully licensed. And
Okay.
so right now it's just self-pay. However, I do recognize that sometimes therapy can be very expensive. And so I do offer a sliding scale so that, those who need it have access to it. So that's something I started out with, because I want people who need the help to be able to get the help that they need.
Great, great. So when people, if people are thinking about therapy and getting started, what is something, as we're closing this podcast out, what is something that you would say to them just to encourage them about seeking therapy and how important it is?
Okay. Well, I think that seeking therapy is super important no matter what stage you are in your life. You could be going through a life transition. You could be grieving. You could be experiencing a pandemic for a year. I think all of us have been exposed to trauma, and it has affected us in unmentionable ways. And so if you are at the place where you feel like what I'm doing ain't working anymore, then I think that's when you should maybe reach out to seek services to help you through. It's okay to not be okay. And I say this all the time. You don't have to be strong. But if you find yourself 3-4 weeks and you're not okay, then maybe, just maybe, you need to sit down on someone's couch and kind of process why you're not okay. And help you get back on track so that you can be well and heal well. So I think that every person, I don't care who you are, should explore it, because it's so beneficial. It's so life-changing. And overall, I think you'll feel better if you lean into it.
Exactly. During you mentioned the pandemic. What are some tips you can share with people about taking care of themselves during this pandemic, especially their mental health at home? What are some things that they could be doing to really be making sure they're taking care of themselves?
Yeah, so with this pandemic that we've been experiencing for the last year, and we have just been inundated with so much information, one thing that I have suggested to my clients is put some boundaries around what you allow your eyes to see and your ears to hear, because it affects your spirit. So you have to put some boundaries around it. So maybe instead of having CNN on for 24 hours, maybe just 15 minutes at the top of the day. Okay. Create a self-care routine. And so that means that you are doing things that are filling yourself. We're all, we're all experiencing stress right now.
Yes.
And I think if we have a routine of caring for ourselves, it will decrease the weight of the stress that we have to endure.
Yes.
Getting enough sleep, like going to bed consistently at a normal time, that affects your mood, your focus, and everything. Eating a balanced meal, okay? Like that is so important. Food has a purpose to fuel our bodies and our minds. And so we need a balanced meal so that we can do whatever it is that we need to do for the day. I also think that we need to get moving, like get off the couch, get moving. Sometimes just going outside for a walk and just experiencing something different will help with your overall well-being or just feeling. Drink some water. Hydrate yourself.
Exactly.
I think that's super important, and sometimes we neglect that, but our bodies need that. And I think we should listen to our bodies. Our bodies give us warning signs before something major happens. And so if you're feeling tired and drained, then maybe you need to turn off the TV and take a nap.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So those are some things I think would help, during this, pandemic right now, to take care of self. But, especially creating a self-care routine where you're focusing and replenishing yourself and taking time to heal.
Because I think a lot of times we think we have to be strong all the time. And
Mm,
I tell everybody, sleep is my superpower. I
I love
can't
it.
do what I need to do if I haven't rested. My
Yes.
body is healing when I rest. So thank
Yes.
you so much for those tips. And I know that those that will watch will be inspired, but also encouraged. And then doing a check within themselves saying, is it time for me to find that therapist? And so I appreciate the gift that you have and the gift that you're sharing with others. And I really appreciate you coming on and having this conversation today. What is one thing you would leave for those that are going to be watching this podcast?
What I would say is see the value in yourself. Look at yourself as an investment. Seek out therapy because you are you're valued.
Yes.
And you see in yourself as being valued.
So you guys heard that. See yourself as being valued. I will leave the contact information for Truth Therapy in the podcast information space. And I look forward to you guys reaching out. And I look forward to seeing you guys soon for other conversations. So thank you so much for joining us today.